Hello and welcome back to Principles of Micro with James Bland. Today's class today's video is here to teach you about public goods and common resources, and it is it's an extension of Mankiw's chapter 10 on externalities, where we're going to formalize why some goods exhibit positive and others negative externalities. And so specifically here we're going to relax two assumptions that we've made about the good, the goods that we've been studying in markets, that we haven't really been specific about just yet. Okay, they've kind of been floating around in the back of our understanding of the goods we're studying, but we haven't really talked about them that much yet. Okay, and so the first property of goods that we've assumed throughout all of this course up to this point is that goods are excludable. Okay, so an excludable good is one that people can be prevented from using the good. Okay, so very simply put, if I own a store and someone doesn't pay me, I am able to prevent them from buying something from my store. Okay, so the example I usually use in my face-to-face classes with this is, suppose I own a diner and you walk in there and say, give me a hamburger. It's reasonably standard to say, well, you need to give me money. And if you don't give me money, I'm under no obligation to give you the hamburger. And there's no way that you can really get that hamburger without paying for it. Okay, so that property is excludable. But there are some goods out there that are not excludable. And you can think about goods where really no one has any property rights over these, and no one is able to exclude other people from consuming these goods. And so goods that are non-excludable are things like, fish in the ocean, right? I can't stop you from going out, or no one can really stop you from going out into the ocean, at least in international waters, and taking fish out of the ocean, or depleting the clean environment without some kind of regulation. And sometimes if you get congestion on a road, I can't stop you from using a road. Sorry, I got ahead of myself there. I can't stop you from using a road if it's not a toll road. We'll get to that a little bit later. A way of making a road excludable is to make it a toll road, right? If it's not a toll road, like, say, 475, which goes around Toledo, nothing's stopping people from using that road, other than a driver's license and car ownership. Okay, but if you think about 8090, which runs east-west around Toledo, you have to pay to go on that road, so people can be excluded from consuming that good, which is a trip along the road, because someone is able to, stop people from using the road if they don't pay. Okay, so this is one of the assumptions that we've been making about our goods up to this point, and that we've kind of had floating around in the background. Okay, the other property that we've assumed that our goods are that they're rival. Okay, a rival is a property of goods, which means that if you consume that good, someone else cannot consume that same good. So going back to our diner example, if I eat a hamburger, you can't eat the same hamburger, right? There's nothing stopping you from eating a different hamburger, but once I've eaten that hamburger, it's not really a good idea, if not impossible, for you to eat it as well, right? So hamburgers are rival. Okay, one person eats them, that means that someone else does not eat them. Okay, but there are some goods, and there are some goods that are reasonably important that are not rival. Okay, so you could think about something like fire protection. For example, if you're living in an apartment building, if the landlord has good fire protection for all of the apartments, then your enjoyment of that fire protection isn't really going to stop other people living in that apartment building from enjoying that fire protection. Or something like cable TV. Okay, so if you are watching Game of Thrones on cable TV, that's not going to stop someone else from watching cable TV, but you can be excluded from that if you don't pay your cable bill. Okay, so there are these two properties of goods that we've assumed, at least in the background, are important to get our results, but when they're not true, we're going to get externalities. Okay, so to begin with, let's think about. These two properties are not mutually exclusive. We could have goods that are rival. It could either be rival or not. And we could have excludable. Yes or no. Okay, so the area that we've been working in exclusively up to this point, except for a little bit with externalities, is in here. Okay, these are referred to as private goods. Okay, so examples like clothing, ice cream cones, these hamburgers I've been talking about here. If you consume one of those things, then someone else is not going to be able to consume it. At least with clothing, I'm the only person who can wear my shirt while I'm wearing it. Okay, so that's the rival part, and they're excludable because there are well-defined property rights over these goods, and so as a seller, I can prevent you from consuming the good just by... I can prevent you from selling the good if you don't pay me. Okay. Now, in this opposite corner down here, we get these things called public goods. Okay. And typically with public goods, we think about these as having positive externalities. Okay, so if a good is non-rival, then people can't be prevented from consuming it. And then, if the good is non-rival, then if I consume it, you can also consume it at no additional cost to society. Okay, and if a good is excludable, then people can't be preventing from consuming them if they want. So, some examples of this could be something like a tornado siren, right? Just because I can hear the tornado siren doesn't mean that you're not going to hear that same tornado siren, right? So that's a no for rival. And the council or the emergency services, whoever's operating the tornado siren, can't charge you a fee and say, well, oh, there's a tornado going on, and if there's a tornado going on, you get to hear the tornado siren if you paid for it. You don't get to hear the tornado siren if you didn't pay for it. They're not able to do that. So, tornado sirens are not excludable. Okay. We can think about these tornado sirens as having a positive externality. Suppose that there isn't a tornado siren in our area, and I, as a private citizen, decide, I'd really like to have a tornado siren in my backyard. Now, outside of any complaints from the local area and the, homeowners association, this is probably something that everyone else around us would like, at least, in the Midwest where we get tornadoes. And so putting up this tornado siren, well, I'd enjoy the benefits because I'd hear if there's a tornado coming because of the siren, but my neighbors would also get the same benefit, and they neither paid for it, nor am I able to stop them from using it. Okay? So it should be reasonably unsurprising that public goods are the sort of things that governments provide, right? The government is able to collect taxes, and so they can pay for things. And so, the government puts in a tornado siren, and, presumably the people who are voting for particular politicians in that government would be willing to vote for a small tax increase for them to have a tornado siren. Okay, but privately you might not want to do it. Other examples of these, things like fireworks, national defense, right? If the federal government, increases the size of its defense force, that doesn't just benefit me or my neighbor, it benefits both of us, so they're non-rival. And the government can't really make a promise to defend my property and not my neighbor's, so it's not excludable. Okay. Other examples of goods that are either not rival or not excludable, let's think about not excludable, because these are the ones we're going to worry about mostly in this chapter. These are called common resources. Okay, so they are rival. If we're thinking about an example like fish in the ocean, then if I take a fish out of the ocean, you are not able to take that same fish out of the ocean. Okay. Now, this sort of also applies to hunting when you don't have a licensing system, or people don't really care about the licensing system. And the thing about these resources is that they're not excludable, right? If we go out to the open ocean, we can take fish out of the ocean, and no one's going to stop us, but that prevents someone else from consuming that good. Okay, now if you think about interacting with a market, what I'm doing is I'm paying a price, right? I'm paying a price for a particular good, and everyone who values the good at above that price gets the good. Everyone who values the good below the price decides not to buy it, right? The price is giving us a signal, is going to give us a signal about, how much we value the good compared to how much other people value the good in society. Okay, but if things aren't excludable, we're not going to achieve allocative efficiency, because even if I just value fishing a little bit, I'm going to take fish out of the ocean, even though a whole lot of other people might want to do it as well, who value it more than I do. Okay, so typically in these situations, we get situations that look like negative externalities. Okay, and just finally, while we're here, this chapter doesn't really cover it as much as the others, but in this corner here is what's referred to as club goods. Okay, so these are goods that the consumers can be prevented, consumers can be prevented from consuming these goods, like cable TV, but, just because I'm watching Game of Thrones doesn't mean that you can't be watching Game of Thrones as well. Okay, if you think about something like internet access, unless everyone is binging Netflix at the same time and your bandwidth goes down, just because I have internet, my cable company can cut off my internet access, but just because I have access to a particular website doesn't stop my neighbors from having access to that website as well. Okay. Where did this name come from? If you think about, a gym, a sporting club or something, typically find, you can stop people from accessing the gym. That's the excludable part of it, but usually these gyms are operating under capacity. Okay, so here's our introduction to common goods and public resources. I'm James Bland, and I'll see you later.